So the author says Krishna Katha will be very much appealing to the most materialistic persons, because Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, the cowherd girls, are exactly like the loving affairs between the young girls and boys within our material world. Actually, the sex feeling found in human society is not unnatural, because the same feelings were there in the original personality of Godhead. The pleasure potency is called Srimati Radharani. The attraction of loving affairs on the basis of the sexual sentiment, okay, is the original feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we, the conditioned souls, being part and parcel of the Supreme, have such feelings also. But they are experienced within a perverted and a minute condition. Therefore, when those who are after sex life in this material world, when they hear about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, they will relish transcendental pleasure, although it appears to be materialistic. The advantage will be that they will gradually be elevated to the spiritual platform. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that if one hears the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis from authorities and with an attitude of submission, then he will be promoted to the platform of transcendental loving service to the Lord, and the material disease of lust within his heart will be completely vanquished. In other words, such hearing will counteract the material sexual connection. So I'm very curious to know what kind of connections existed between the gopis and Sri Krishna. And I'm also very mystified that when you go to Vrindavan, after sunset, every form of life abandons the place. The entire temple complex and the surrounding Nidhivan forest and the surrounding area, every window is shut. Nobody dare even look at what is happening in Vrindavan after dark. And this is a daily phenomenon. And I, as a devotee, had gone with my friend, and we had actually bought bangles and mehendi as offerings to Radhe Ma, which are kept on a bed. And that room is prepared for Lord Krishna and Radhe to visit every single night. So there's prasad, there's milk, there's a little food. There are these offerings of bangles, bindis, all the suhagan, the signs of the suhagan, and mehendi. And when you return in the morning, usually all of it is gone. So there is definitely a sustained engagement from the divine energies of Radha Krishna in Vrindavan. And now this is what I find very eerie also and very fascinating, that every monkey, every ant, every bird leaves Vrindavan at sunset as if out of respect for the privacy of the Lord. And they say that the Nidhivan trees are the gopis around, embraced around Krishna. All of this comes to life, and that there is a living Ras Leela that happens in Vrindavan, the cosmic dance. And obviously, if the books are telling us that there was a polarity, there was a gender polarity, there was a man-woman connect between the gopis and Krishna, but it was possibly a much more sacred kind of connect, right? Not the material sexual connection, some kind of transcendental sexual connection. I'm deeply fascinated by what actually happens there, and I'm sure all of us are. But they say if any human or any creature stays there and tries to witness it, they either go blind or they go mad, or they go deaf, blind and mad. So it is a risk to your existence to do it. So unless Krishna gives you the drishti, the vision, to enjoy what he is saying, doing, and his presence. So even on the battlefield of the Kurukshetra, when Arjuna was feeling so lost, first Krishna had to give him the drishti, the empowered vision that would allow him to see Krishna in his Vishvarupa form. And we will get into more details of the Vishvarupa form, because it contained every polarity, good, bad, mad, glad, wealth, poverty, greed, generosity. It contained every polarity that is a part of our universe as we know it. If you watch the Gaia, the spiritual channel Gaia, it actually tells you that there is a space beyond duality, beyond this material existence, which is hinged on, the duality of day, night, health, sickness, enemies, and friendships. So beyond these dualities, you have a spiritual space of nothingness, which is where you go when you meditate. It's called the source. And beyond the source is where Lord Krishna's Vrindavan, his Vaikuntham, is in permanent existence. And one has to be very self-realized to access that Vaikuntham. Okay, and there's a beautiful paragraph where it's described, which I'm trying to locate. Yes. Yes. The Lord's abode is described in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 20th verse, where it is stated that there is another eternal nature, the spiritual sky, which is transcendental to this manifested and non-manifested matter. The manifested world can be seen in the form of many stars and planetary systems, such as the sun and moon. But beyond this, there is a non-manifested portion, which is not approachable by anyone in this body. And beyond that non-manifested matter is the spiritual kingdom. That kingdom is described in the Bhagavad Gita as supreme and eternal, never to be annihilated. The material nature is subject to repeated creation and annihilation, but that part, the spiritual nature, remains as it is eternally. The supreme abode of the personality of Godhead Krishna is also described in the Brahma Samhita as the abode of Chintamani. That abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavana, is full of palaces made of touchstone. There the trees are called desire trees and the cows are called surabhi. The Lord is served there by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. His name is Govinda, the primeval Lord, and he is the cause of all causes. There the Lord plays his flute. His eyes are like lotus petals, and the color of his body is like that of a beautiful blue cloud. On his head is a peacock feather. He is so attractive that he excels thousands of cupids. Lord Krishna gives only a little hint in the Gita of this personal abode, which is the supermost planet in the spiritual kingdom. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna actually appears with all his paraphernalia and demonstrates his activities in Vrindavana, then at Mathura, and then at Dwarka. The subject matter of this book will reveal all these wondrous activities. Now remember, as we get into the activities, we have to learn to apply Krishna's magic in the post-pandemic world. In the last video, I instructed us to chant Radhe Radhe because Radhe's name is 100 times the power of Krishna's name, and this is something he himself has expressed. And remember that the potency of wealth, of prosperity comes from Sri Lakshmi. Sri Lakshmi is Radha. We are all struggling right now with an economy that's on very uneven footing, especially in India, where the second wave had really undermined a lot of our normalization processes. And therefore, keep chanting Radhe Radhe Sham Milade, because that takes care of the Radhe Radhe vibration that brings everything positive and auspicious into your world. I mean, there's actually a statement here saying that the listening of the Krishna Kathas is the antidote to the inauspiciousness of the Kali Yuga. And hence so is the name Radhe Radhe. It's a medicine against all the instability and the uncertainty and the economic instability of the times that we're living in. So as we meet for these Krishna and transcendental experience sharings, keep in mind that even the listening of this is going to help you tremendously move into a transcendental state of mind. And on that note, I exit this video. Blessings from the transcendental world, the beautiful world of Lord Shri Krishna. Radhe Radhe, Sham Milade.